Yo, what up, YouTube? Crash Wilcox, and I'm coming to you live, hiding in my bedroom because my house is full of people and it's loud and stress-inducing. So, sorry for the accommodations up here, but I'll try to make that up with some good pre-built PC and used part recommendations for this month. So we're here July 2020, so this is going to be the next iteration of our kind of pre-built PC and used part buyer's guide. I will link up here the previous 2 months for June and May because I make points in there that may be valuable to go back and listen to as to, what kind of things to consider when buying a pre-built PC. And again, the reason why I do this is because there's a market for pre-built PCs. People want to buy them. And like I talked about before, whenever somebody goes on to Facebook, whatever, Reddit, and they ask, hey, I'm in the market for a PC, but I want a pre-built, can you help me? Or, hey, how does this one look? It's immediately followed by, you're an idiot, save money, build it yourself. And that's not helpful when you're looking for a pre-built. So the idea of this is to be helpful. I certainly recommend building your own, but if you don't have the time, the skill, or you just don't enjoy the process, it's a painful process at times, then pre-builts are for you and there are good options. But just keep in mind, you're paying a little bit of a premium, but that would, be expected, right? You can probably build a house for a lot less than $200,000. But, if you want a house that's already pre-built that you can move into, you kind of have to, pay what they're charging. So that's the mindset. So with that, we're going to jump in here. We're going to kind of do it the same way. We're going to look at a couple of the, pre-built sort of custom PCs. Then we'll move into sort of the big box stores with like the Amazon and the eBay. My nose is itching. The big box stores. And then we'll move into, not eBay, but the used parts and the used pre-builts on eBay and Mercari as well. And that's how we'll wrap it up. So without further ado, the first company that we're going to look at today is Digital Storm. And I have to say, I've looked at other custom pre-builts. I made the case in the May video that NZXT was a good option if you went with their sort of starter builds and you just, whatever. I can't remember which one I recommended, but you can check that out. And NZXT was a good option. I don't think that there's a lot of good options when it comes to Digital Storm, unless you just like Digital Storm and the way that they look. But comparing them to other custom pre-builts, we could take a look here. So even at the low end, when you come here to the links, $699, a $700 computer. And what you get for this is not, I don't think it's even worth the $700. So you can see right here, we'll click on the configs. And they are simple as far as how to pick out what you want. They make it really simple: good, better, best, ultimate. But the problem is what they put in those is not great. So for a $700 computer, they're giving you a Ryzen 5 3400G, which is a Ryzen APU. So there's integrated graphics. There's no dedicated graphics card in this computer, at least for the $700 model. It's giving you just straight 2 terabytes of mechanical storage, 8 gigs of RAM. Not good value. Understand you're going to pay a premium for pre-builts, but this is not a good pre-built. And usually I've made the case that if you're going to go with the pre-built model, I recommend getting one of the more premium because you at least get a better experience, even though you wind up paying more. I would rather pay $2,000 for a computer that I could probably build for $1,700. That was going to be an awesome experience. Then pay $700 a month for a computer that I could build for, $550 and just be a bad experience. So this, I think, would be a bad experience. But then even over here, the $1,500 computer. You know, you're getting an i7-9700F. This is a non-unlocked, or it's a locked CPU because it's not a K, and it doesn't even have the integrated graphics in it. Come with a 2070 Super, which is fine, I guess. But for $1,600, you know, I don't feel like I would be getting a great value out of this computer. So I don't think that this is really a great option. And then even when you go, so that's the bargain basement for Digital Storm, $699. But even when you go all the way to, like, you know, the super high end for what they have. Oh, that's not what I wanted to click on. Let's see if we can find this. Like one of their high end workstation computers. So come here to their workstations. So for $6,500, let's see what you get. So let's say you just wanted to come here for the Threadripper, $8,000 starting price. That's steep. But let's see what you at least get for it. So you get the 3970X, 32 core, 64 thread, behemoth, 128 gigs of RAM, which is fantastic. But where it really, I think, doesn't shine is here in the storage. I mean, you get a terabyte Samsung 970 EVO, which is M.2 NVMe storage, and then a 2 terabyte Seagate, basically mechanical hard drive. You get a single 2080 Ti, and yeah, I mean, you get some tubing, some water cooling, but that's about it. So for $8,000, you get a 3970X and a 2080 Ti with 3 terabytes of storage. Like, that's hard pill to swallow. So, in my opinion, Digital Storm, not a company I would recommend as far as going with the pre-built option, unless, like I said, you just really like the way that they look. And it's not that there's no benefit to this. If you make money on your computer and you're getting into deep learning and AI and all that sort of stuff, you know, it might be nice to have somebody put a computer together for you with these specs, make sure that it works. But again, as you'll see later on, I think you can do, you know, at least close to as good for, you know, a lot less money. But so that's Digital Storm. I would, you know, in previous videos, I've looked at Origin PC. I think that's a better value here. NZXT, I think, is a better value here. And, you know, again, even if you were going with a workstation type computer, I don't know what would draw you towards a Digital Storm. This is really more designed towards gamers, in my opinion, and I think they're lacking in that gaming price to performance category. So I'd steer clear of Digital Storm. Go look at that NZXT build, and I think that's a better option for you here. So moving on from Digital Storm, and there's a lot of other options in here, and, you know, maybe you'll find one that piques your interest. I just personally, I think it's not a great value for what you get compared to some of the other options. So next one we have up here, I went to HP, and, you know, they're kind of I guess it's just a big box computer manufacturer, and they've been around forever. But scrolling through here, I found one that kind of stuck out to me, and it's this HP Omen 30-liter desktop, whatever GT long number. And right now, for the 4th of July special, so we'll just click on it. But I like the look of it, which is what kind of drew me into it. I think it's kind of a unique look. It's not necessarily a small form factor, but it's definitely not a full, like, mid-tower. It's kind of in that, middle section. I'm assuming that 30L is a 30 liter, so that's not terribly big. And it's definitely lacking in some areas, but what you do get for $1,000 is it gonna show on here? You get a Ryzen 5 3600, fantastic CPU, and it also gives you a RX 5700 XT, which is a fantastic GPU. And as I've made the point many times before, when you're buying a pre-built and you understand that you're overpaying, you at least want a good user experience out of it. And a Ryzen 5 3600 with a 5700 XT will be a fantastic user experience. Now, this is certainly lacking in areas. And as you can see here, it only comes with 8 gigs of memory and a 256 gig SSD. That stinks. But you could very easily, for $50, go and get a 2 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drive, put that in there. And, RAM, you can get 16 gigs of RAM right now, at 3200 megahertz for like $60. So, not terribly expensive, but out of the box, I don't think that this is a terrible deal, and it has a very unique look to it, which again, you're sort of paying for. This is HP Omen specific, so you're paying for that. But yeah, like I would rather pay $1,000 for this Ryzen 5 3600, 5700 XT than $700 to Digital Storm for a Ryzen APU, no dedicated graphics, like no SSD in Digital Storm. To me, this $1,000 is better spent than the $700 at Digital Storm. So this is a computer I would recommend. It has one negative review, so that's not great. But, that's going to be something, again, that you'd have to look into as far as cooling, whatever happens to be. I mean, I haven't tested this computer personally. I'm just looking on paper, kind of seeing something like what I would spend my money on. And this one, I think you could justify. And then for very cheap, you could upgrade if you wanted to. So not a bad computer all around. And if you like that sort of small form factor, again, this isn't tiny, but it's not, terribly big either. So it's kind of nice little middle ground there. So those are the two. Digital Storm, again, buyer beware, I would say. But this HP Omen, wouldn't be my first choice, but I don't think it's a bad value. So then moving away from there into the big box store, kind of going back to what we talked about with the workstation PCs. We looked at that $8,000 on Digital Storm. So we came over here to Amazon and found this Threadripper 2950, which is not a 32 core. It's a 16 core, 32 thread. But what it lacks in cores, it certainly makes up for with dual 2080 Ti's. So the Digital Storm PC had the 3970X, which is 32 core, 64 thread CPU with a single 2080 Ti. This cuts the core count in half, 16 cores, 32 threads, but dual 2080 Ti's. So that's fantastic. And then also in the storage here, you get a 1 terabyte SSD plus 6 terabytes of mechanical storage, which is awesome. And you are losing a lot of RAM. So you're going from 128 to 32 gigs, but I would imagine you can probably upgrade this. You could get another 32 gig kit for, it's not going to cost you $2,500. That's for sure. So this might be a good option. Again, if you're into that workstation, your computer is your money. And maybe you're, like I said, getting into that kind of AI, deep learning. I don't know what else you would need something like this for. I mean, you don't need it for video editing, I can assure you. But this, in my mind, would be a better value. Save that $2,500. You could obviously throw a little bit of extra money into some RAM if you wanted to, and you're good to go. Outside of that, I mean, I don't know what else you would need, but this is a good value in my mind for what it is workstation wise. Do not recommend a computer like this for 99.99% of the country. But if you're that 0.01%, not a bad value. Now, again, you'd have to check out thermals, all that sort of stuff. It's probably not great, but, you have to see for yourself. So this right here, though, for $5,400, not bad. Not bad, in my opinion. And again, you could also even upgrade. I think they have like a 2990X or something like that. You might be able to upgrade that even another step higher. But this would handle anything workstation wise that you could ever conceive of doing. So there you go. That's a good big box store product. And again, like all my videos, all these products will be linked down in the description. So if you are creating AI that's going to eventually take over the world, before you do that, use my link, throw me a couple of shekels. I'd appreciate it. And I could at least live well before the robots killed me. All right, so that's Amazon. So now we're going to move away from sort of the custom new pre-builts. And we're going to move into the used market, which is where I think if you're in the pre-built market, you should focus on. Definitely can get some good value, I think, out of this. So the first one we have here, mid-tier gaming PC, $1,200. And why I like coming to the used market here is because you have an opportunity to negotiate, which, you don't really have when you're dealing with a Digital Storm or an HP. You just pay what you pay. But this one right here, $1,200, even I think if that's what you paid, I don't think you should beat yourself up over it because it's not a terrible value. So you can see right here, 3600X with a 5600 XT. This is going to be a fantastic 1080p gaming computer, maybe even some light 1440p, or especially if you're getting into like esports, free to play. I mean, you'll play 4K on that if you wanted to. So not a bad value there. And then coming down just to see what the rest of this has. 16 gigs of RAM. Also has a pretty nice motherboard, an X570 Aorus Elite, which is something you're not most likely going to get with one of these new custom pre-builts like a HP or a Digital Storm. Generally, they're going to skimp back on the parts. Although it may say, whatever it is, 2080 Ti, it's not going to be some gigabyte Aorus 2080 Ti. It's going to be, if there is a lower end 2080 Ti, that's what it's going to be. So whereas if you're buying a pre-built or a used pre-built, generally you might get some better components out of it. So X570 Aorus Elite, good motherboard, 16 gigs of RAM and a 500 gig SSD, which is nice. So there you go. And it actually looks like it's fairly clean. Looks like the dude, and this is something you can try to, I think, pay attention to when you're looking at used pre-builts, is how the pictures are presented. Did the person actually take the time to present the product well? Like, in my mind, this guy's probably taking care of his computer because you can see it's clean, it's showcased. Probably not just, some piece of garbage that was stuck under his desk eating dust and carpet fibers for the last 5 years. And it looks clean. If that's something you're into a white PC build theme, not bad. So like I said, $1,200, I wouldn't beat myself up too bad for even paying that price. But again, you have the option to make an offer down here. You can message the seller and try to negotiate maybe a better deal out of that. And if it's less than $1,200, I think you're getting a pretty good value out of that. So next up here. Oh, I wanted to show middle of the video. One computer you shouldn't buy. So I did this in the last video. I'm not trying to beat up too much on bad pre-builds because there's a lot of those videos out there. But I just want to give disclaimers on things that you should pay attention to so that you don't sort of get, I guess, taken really. And this is something I see a lot. If you're reading through here, the description, and in the heading, the title of the product, you get the sense that they don't know what they're talking about. I would steer clear of that. So right here we have a gaming PC desktop computer, RGB i7 Ryzen 5. What is an i7 Ryzen 5? Is it either or? Is this a dual CPU computer? Or more likely, they just don't really know what they're talking about. So $735. Yeah, whatever. You can look at what's down here. And then you can see down here, it says it's a Ryzen 5 1600. But, I mean, that would steer me clear. And then you look at it, and, you know, it's not atrocious. But, yeah, I mean, it's just not something I would go with. And again, this isn't this computer specific, but if you look at a title and you're like, what are they talking about in this? These components don't make sense. Steer clear, in my opinion. So that's the one that you shouldn't buy on this. And then the last one that we have here is this used high-end gaming PC. Typically, when you hear high-end gaming PC, again, you should tread lightly on that, because everybody that's ever sold a computer tells you it's super high-end, and then you find out it has some third gen i3 and a, you know, RX 480 or some crap. So steer clear, but this one I think is a good value. So $1,645 is a hefty price to pay for sure, especially for a used computer. But when you come down here, the reason I put this on here, it's got a 2080 Ti, which is in most senses already $1,000 graphics card. So for that alone, buying a 2080 Ti computer is probably a pretty good deal in my opinion. Now, the rest of the computer, not that great. You know, an i7 6700K is most certainly going to bottleneck your 2080 Ti in a lot of AAA titles. But 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD is all good. But the reason that I put this on here is, I mean, I think for, you know, just a couple $100, you could probably go and get a H470 motherboard and maybe a, you know, an i5 10400 or something for, you know, all that together is probably $300, $350, and throw that in here and not really bottleneck quite as badly anymore. And now you got, you know, whatever. It's a 2080 Ti computer. So what do you want from me? Get off my back. It's 2080 Ti, fully built. Again, it's used, so you may be able to haggle that price a little bit lower. And you're not finding too many PCs on the market that have 2080 Ti's for less than $1,600, I assure you. So that's a good value in my opinion. And then you can upgrade that as you go. And it's not a bad looking computer again. He presents it fairly well. Looks like he's got some custom cables in there, which is cool. So not bad. 2080 Ti for potentially $1,645. So that's that. So moving on from eBay, we're going to jump over to Mercari.com. So first up for Mercari, we got right here a Ryzen 9. It's already been sold. That's how good of a deal it was. It was a Ryzen 9 3950X for $680. That's not shabby. So there you go. Next up, let's see if this was sold as well. Radeon RX 550. Not a great GPU in today's market, but for $68, and again, you have the option to make an offer. And it is a single fan card. So if you're building a cheap, you know, home theater PC or whatever is a small form factor computer of, you know, trying to keep the budget really low, this isn't bad. If you want to play some 1080p, you know, free to play games, esports games, or maybe you're building something for your kid and they're just playing Minecraft or Roblox or, you know, those sorts of games, League of Legends or whatever, not bad for $68. If I was building a small form factor and it was just for, you know, my daughter or whatever that plays Roblox, yeah, dude, I'd throw that in there and be perfectly fine with it. So that's not a bad value for a used GPU. And then also, again, you can make an offer, maybe get this thing down for around $50, and now you got a pretty good deal. Next up here, we got the Ryzen 7 1700. So I've talked about this in previous videos. You know, a lot of times people get nervous about used PC components kind of being abused, you know, especially in the GPU market. And I made the case that in the GPU market, if you see anything that's like in the 5700, you know, the AMD like RX 5000 series of cards, or the RTX series of graphics card, you can pretty much rest assured that those weren't abused. They're too new to really have been abused. Like, they're probably not in, you know, cryptocurrency mining and all that sort of stuff anymore. And likewise, you know, like a Ryzen series CPU, they're not terribly old. I doubt that they were abused too bad. So this right here, Ryzen 7 1700, you got 8 cores, 16 threads for $150. So, you know, this is obviously first gen Ryzen. They've come a long way since then to the Ryzen 3000 series. But Ryzen first gen was still great. I mean, it, you know, is obviously what kicked off the sort of CPU revolution that has been AMD. And if you're building a budget workstation or video editing or content creation sort of machine, I mean, you're still getting 8 cores, 16 threads that will, you know, chew through some amateur content creation if that's what you're going for, and still game well on it. Still a good value. And for $150 to get 8 cores, 16 threads, I mean, you're not really getting that anywhere else, you know, so not a bad value here. And again, I would feel confident buying this CPU that it hasn't been overly abused. And then if you're a good negotiator, make them an offer. Might get it a lot lower than that too. So that's a good option for you. And then the last one that we have here, we're going with a power supply. Power supplies are a nightmare to find. They have been for a little while. Like I said, it's July 2020. But here we have a 650 watt, fully modular EVGA power supply, $110. That's a decent value on its own. But then again, make an offer, maybe get this for less than $100, and you've got yourself a great power supply, and it's available, and they're offering free shipping. So that's wonderful. This would power, I mean, I don't know what computer, unless you had maybe a 10900K and a 2080 Ti with a bunch of RGB fans and you're an AIO, sure, maybe this isn't enough. But, you know, for anybody that's reasonable buying a Ryzen 7, an i5, something to that sort, this is going to be perfectly fine for that. So no big deal there. That's a good option if you're looking for power supplies. So that's all the parts that we have for you today in this month's sort of iteration. Please take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'd certainly appreciate it. And then if you want to see more updates, I've been hit or miss, but I try to weekly put new lists of used parts on my Patreon page. So for $2 a month, you can jump on there, see some of those updates. But more importantly, you can help support the channel, and I would appreciate it. So that's all I got for you guys. God bless.